European Aboriginal people, which were the founders, should make up 95% of the population. Now, within the 95%, I include the Japanese in the West Coast, because the Japanese Canadians are founders. They've been here a long time. And the Negroes, I don't use the term black because it's a very derogatory term, Negroes in Nova Scotia who've been here 150 years that escaped the Jewish-run slave trade south of the border, and they came here. So I include them in that 95%.
Hello. The title of this video is What Became of the Most Controversial Right-Wing People I Interviewed? I think this is going to be a very interesting video for you guys. I'm going to show you some clips from former interviews I did with very controversial people, and I'm going to update you and show you kind of where they are today. And I think it's very interesting, and there's a lot that we can take away from all of this if we reflect on it, because I think that my experiences with this channel, this whole media project, were really bizarre and unique, and there is some important lessons to take away from them, and I learned a lot from this. Looking back on it, I started this channel about 8 years ago after a Jordan Peterson rally, and between then and now, I personally have changed and evolved and morphed as a person so much I don't recognize the old person much anymore, but I remember everything pretty well. And I think, you know, today I would never associate with any of these people. I would never interview any of these people. And I cringe at a lot of it, but I also think some of it was necessary. I knew I wasn't going to be understood by a lot of people, and I was also very naive and ignorant of a lot of stuff at the time. So it all ended up being this just fascinating project, really. But also, you know, we should reflect on the fact that okay, so overall, I was kind of surprised to realize when I looked at my channel, there was more content covering left-wing stuff and socialist stuff than there was right-wing stuff. But the right-wing stuff was so hot in terms of controversy that you know, I got thrown into this pile with a bunch of names that I probably shouldn't have been associated with. One thing I'll say today is, though, I'm definitely not conservative or on the right in any way, really, except for the fact that I still don't like political correctness as a thing, but that doesn't, like, I don't change it. I'm a leftist, generally speaking. Looking back on it, sorry, I forget what I was about to say. They're just, these people are really toxic, and I wouldn't associate with most of them today, but, you know, that's it. The thing I don't agree with the modern left, even to this day, is, like, here in the Canadian context, it's just this no platforming stuff, because it actually made it make everything worse. Like during the manufactured culture war, even I would have figured a lot of stuff out sooner if people in certain groups were just willing to talk to me. And I wasn't being disingenuous with any of this stuff. I wasn't like endorsing any of these people. I was actually trying to give them a platform to reveal who they were without being argumentative with them, just to kind of clarify things and genuine curiosity. And I was having a personal reaction to political correctness. So this is kind of a context for some of this stuff. But let's, first off, I'm going to show you some clips from one of the most controversial people that I talked to, and that was James Sears, who ended up, you know, having a lot of trouble. A lot of these people that I interviewed ended up have gone to jail since, looking back on it, and that's probably because most of these people are, you know, malignant narcissists. They're all narcissists with that, in my opinion now, in my personal subjective opinion, that they are hateful people, in my opinion, and they're desperate for attention. So I do regret, in a sense, giving it to them, but I was also, you know, probing through some things. So I'll show you a clip of James Sears here, and I'll show it to you, and then I'll show you sort of the latest update I had on him. So check this out.
Even though women cannot possibly earn as much as men because they don't work as hard, they don't have as much aggression as men to ask for raises, but nonetheless they wanted equality in the workplace. And now there's this fourth wave of feminism going on right now, where they want to bring foreign men over here to replace white men in order to get back at the patriarchy, even though the men they're bringing over are the patriarchy.
Okay, so that guy was interesting, right? I took that interview down because overall it's just a toxic dude, but as far as his legacy goes, first one of these guys to go to jail. This is the most recent article I found about him, so check this out. So that was what became of James Sears. Moving along, another right-wing figure that was very controversial that I interviewed was Travis Patron, who was the leader and founder of the Canadian Nationalist Party, which existed as a federal party for one election cycle. And it was only ever a very fringe thing, but he was the founder, and I interviewed him. It was interesting. Then, he has since been arrested and charged with multiple crimes. So to begin with, I'll show you this interview clip that I did with him. So here's a little sample.
Travis, I'd like to thank you for talking to me so far. I think we've talked about a lot of really interesting ideas that you're putting on the table in terms of economics and in terms of cultural values and so on. So one final question I'd like you to elaborate on is this. A lot of Canadians are probably watching this, and I know that there's a lot of psychological diversity out there among the population. And so some of the things you're saying are going to seem like common sense to some people, but there's also a lot of people that I'm sure have seen this interview now that are the key takeaways that are going to be in their mind are you're not interested in supporting homosexuality or the LGBT community. They're going to know that you're proposing people have to earn the right to vote, and they're going to know that you're proposing essentially special emphasis on Europeans in terms of immigration policies. All of these are ideas that are probably going to turn off someone who's on the modern left, and also give fuel to journalists and media sources on the left that are going to want to paint your party as being a racist nationalist party that's dog whistling to white nationalist type of things, and that probably will come off to them as being perceived as an unempathetic party. These are things I want to bring up bluntly on the record here, because I'd like to give you a chance to just finally comment on those type of things and perhaps tell that segment of the population that are concerned with those types of things why they might still overall see your party as the best option on the table going forward at the federal level.
Well, quite simply, Alex, we're not trying to please every single person. I think that's impossible when you stand by an ideology and a platform that you truly believe in. It's not possible to please absolutely everybody. But for those people who are lukewarm or at least interested in learning more, then they can come out to one of our events, they can listen to our ideas, and they can come to an informed decision on
That's Travis Patron, and this story gets really interesting. He got in trouble multiple times with the law. Here's the first example where he assaulted some women. So Travis got in trouble for multiple stuff. I'll post links to different articles for things that he got in trouble for in the description, but most recently he was charged with impersonating a police officer and approaching a woman with her child, and it gets pretty creepy. I'll post links to that in the description. He tried to appeal his sentencing, and the judge threw that out.
Patron is going to get his day in court, but not today. He was supposed to have a bail hearing this morning. Instead, he appeared by phone and found out that he's facing a new criminal charge. Police say that Patron harassed a man and his girlfriend at this downtown mall. The man he approached was an off-duty RCMP officer. 10 days later, it's alleged that he approached a woman here at the university. The campus put out an alert. And then it's alleged Patron did the same to another woman and her young daughter downtown. In both cases, the women say he claimed to be in law enforcement. The women were alarmed enough to call police. Now, Patron faces 3 charges of impersonating a law enforcement officer.
They infiltrate.
They're just Patron's latest run-ins with the law. Last summer, he was convicted of assaulting 2 women in Regina. Then, last October, he was convicted of promoting hatred against Jews. Petron founded the now-defunct Canadian Nationalist Party, which promoted anti-immigrant and anti-LGBTQ views. Petron is refusing help from legal aid and says he'll represent himself. He describes his most recent arrest as an arbitrary detainment, and he says that he doesn't recognize the jurisdiction of the court. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
So this just gets downright super creepy. Like, I think maybe he has serious mental health issues, and I still suspect he's a serious danger to the public. So, I hope people are keeping a tab on Travis Petron. So, let's see. James Sears went to jail. Travis Petron went to jail. Kevin J. Johnston, I interviewed him a couple of times. He's a character. Let's put it that way. So here's a little sample of this guy that I interviewed once outside of a Christian college of a Rebel Media event. Check this out.
Kevin J. Johnston, radio personality, stand-up comedian, future mayoral candidate, and self-described professional asshole. Kevin, how are you today?
We're doing well, but you forgot to mention the next mayor of Mississauga. We got to get our information correct before we start. But I'm doing quite well, and I'm honored to be at the Canada Christian College tonight.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me. So, in the news, obviously, because of your court case, and which is, I think you're the first person in Canada to be charged with the M103 bill. Is there any comments on where that's at or what's going on with that?
Well, here's what I can say about it, is that first off, it was under Section 319, subsection 2 of the Criminal Code, which indicates if you make statements that might be offensive or hurtful or hateful towards a select identifiable group, that you can be charged criminally and face up to 2 years for it. In many cases, they just issue fines, but they're big fines, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. But it's written so poorly. It is such a weak piece of text that it could mean that if you are picking on Toronto Maple Leaf fans or Calgary Stampeders fans, you can do prison time for it. That's how dumb this country has become with legislating for the saving of people's feelings. Your feelings don't matter. So what I can say also on the suit, though, is that it was Bonnie Crombie, current mayor of Mississauga, and Iqra Khalid and one of Iqra Khalid's assistants that went to the police to say, charge this guy. Now, we do know that there were several Crown attorneys that refused to issue charges because they said what Mr. Johnston says might be outside of social norms, but there's nothing illegal. Iqra Khalid, as we know, is the member of the Muslim Brotherhood and also is somebody who wants to see women beaten with sticks. She used to give out flyers to this, made a phone call to her good friend, the Pakistani Muslim Attorney General Yasir Naqvi of Ontario. He's the one that decided to try to teach me a lesson and teach all of Canada a lesson by okaying the charge. A complete and total abusive process.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's Kevin. Kevin would go on to get charged and arrested for many things, and he would also hang out with other trolls and provocateurs, and he's gonna blend in with the story of Ron Banerjee. But for now, I'll show you. This is sort of where he ended up. This is Kevin now.
Alberta Health Services is seeking $1.3 million in a lawsuit against Kevin J. Johnston, described in the filing by AHS as a self-appointed spokesperson for Albertans that oppose their efforts on COVID-19. The claim lays out pages of comments made by Johnston in videos mainly posted by himself, referring to AHS inspectors and staff as Nazis and Gestapo, as well as allegedly threatening to destroy the plaintiffs and suggesting that they deserve to be stabbed. AHS is making the case that Johnston's comments are defamatory and malicious, and that they constitute harassment of AHS and its employees, including 2 specific inspectors named in the suit. The $1.3 million being sought includes $500,000 for general damages, $250,000 each for punitive and aggravated damages, and $300,000 for special damages. Johnston has less than 1 month to respond.
Mayoral candidate Kevin J. Johnston was arrested by U.S. Border Patrol agents early this morning. Johnston was trying to cross the Saskatchewan-Montana border on foot. He is being held in Plentywood Montana, while police prepare to have him returned to Canada. Calgary police confirm warrants have been issued after Johnston failed to appear at the Calgary Remand Center for the final weekend of his sentence. He was convicted of breaching court orders related to non-compliance with Alberta's public health measures.
Okay, so, you know, that's a lot, like, the fine of $650,000 is a lot of money, and I think that, you know, I'll put links in the comment again, but him getting charged with trying to cross the border illegally is just pretty funny as well. You know, he's a character, so he's been doing jail time intermittently as well. Some of you may also remember I interviewed a guy named Rick Mehta, who was a professor who got fired from Acadia University. He was kind of trying to market himself like a Jordan Peterson type who was getting persecuted for standing up to political correctness.
Recording them.
So sexual harassment is a pretty serious allegation. So what? And you're saying that they're accusing you of sexually harassing someone because of what you've said in the classroom and basically what you've put on social media?
Exactly. So I actually checked the harassment policy, and it is very explicit in saying that intentions don't matter. All that matters is outcomes. And so when you have a release from the Women and Gender Studies a couple days before I did my critique, sort of feminist critique of the education system as a kind of going off the traditional script for my intro psych course. So the day before that, there was a release from the Women and Gender Studies coordinator, kind of just talking about, like, you know, a climate of fear on campus done in the name of free speech, etc. So I set it aside, but thinking, but in case I would need that as sort of correlational evidence, that happened to precede the class that I delivered, and then shortly after the class, that's when I got the letter saying that I'm under investigation. And so it's based on the outcome, based on outcomes under a really loosely defined policy. And if one looks at the actual letter, we have no idea what the scope of the investigation is, what potential outcomes or where it's going to go and whatnot. So, yeah.
Turned out that was all basically nonsense. I was emailed evidence personally to conclude all of the stuff to like verify all the stuff that would later come out about him. I've heard private tapes of the disciplinary hearings of him at Acadia and stuff like that, so he definitely is a character, and there's something going on with him too, and he provokes all his own problems, harasses people, steals mail. He's just some other kind of narcissistic character that's just out there, and most recently, you know, he's been in court, he's been charged with stuff, so this is what became of Rick Mehta. So again, Rick ended up in, looks like he's in trouble with the law. So James Sears, Kevin J. Johnston, Rick Mehta, and Travis Patron, they've all been, they're like the right-wing equivalent of like a Batman villains rogues gallery or something. These guys are all just as a list of freaks. Then, you know, I spoke to Richard Spencer once, who is super racist, and then afterwards, like, which isn't a surprise to anyone, but Milo Yiannopoulos leaked this audio tape of him, which there's no denying he's just an absolute garbage person after this tape. So there was just no merit in the interview I did with him. That's why it's not public either. But check this out. This was a leaked tape that Milo showed of him.
They get ruled by people like me, little fucking octoroons. My ancestors fucking enslaved those pieces of fucking shit.
We're gonna win.
I rule the fucking world. Those pieces of shit get ruled by people like me. They look up and see a face like mine looking down at them. That's how the fucking world works. We are gonna destroy this fucking town.
Okay, so I think after watching that, it's really hard to argue that he's not a malignant narcissist and just a garbage human being all around. And to round out this list of garbage human beings, I'll talk a little about Ron Banerjee, who is an Indian man who identifies as a Hindu nationalist, who's sort of just a troll, a right-wing troll kind of guy. He is always harassing Muslims, and he hangs out with Kevin J. Johnston. He eventually got sued for harassing the owner of Paramount Fine Foods, and part of this, his punishment was he had to record an apology video. So I'm going to just end this with Ron Banerjee's apology video and sort of wrap it up by just showing you that a lot of these people were definitely toxic, and I don't think that it should have been illegal or anything like that for me to interview them. But I wish I knew a lot more then about narcissism and stuff like that, just so I could have recognized like the pointlessness of giving them any time. But this is all reflections now from almost a decade later. So love to hear your comments on these guys, these characters, and what you think about this stuff. Like and sub to this video. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
You have to have raped your wife at least a few times to be allowed in there.
Someone else's wife, not your wife.
Qualified apology of Ranendra Ron Banerjee. On July 20th, 2017, I attended Paramount Fine Foods at 1290 Crestlawn Drive, Mississauga, Ontario, with Kevin J. Johnston. At that time, I made defamatory and disparaging comments about Paramount Fine Foods and its owner, Mohammed Faqih. I said that in order to be permitted entry into the Paramount Fine Foods restaurant, you got to be a jihadist. I also said you need credentials. You have to have raped your wife at least a few times to be allowed in there. I was also aware that Mr. Johnston made a number of other defamatory and disparaging remarks about Paramount Fine Foods and Mr. Faqih, including calling Mr. Faqih a racist restaurant owner who gives money to convicted terrorists and threatens Christians and Hindus. I either agreed with Mr. Johnston's statements or made no attempt to correct them. These statements were captured on video and published on a variety of online and social media platforms for anyone to access. These statements were entirely without merit, and I provide this unqualified apology to Paramount Fine Foods and Mr. Faqih for any harm I may have caused them because of the statements made that day. I have learned that it was wrong to attack Mr. Faqih because of his religion or where he is from. Such hate has no place in Canada, and I will not make public statements of this nature in the future. I hope everyone seeing or reading this apology learns from my mistake.